The Florida Podcast Network, the voice of Florida.
From Mallory Square in Key West to the Governor's Mansion in Tallahassee and all points beyond, you're listening to the Florida Beer Podcast, powered by FloridaBeerBlog.com, your source for all things related to the craft beer community in the Sunshine State. And now your host, Dave Butler.
Welcome to another episode of the Florida Beer Podcast, powered by FloridaBeerBlog.com. This is Dave, your host and author. I hope you enjoyed our last episode in the ancient city of St. Augustine, Florida's oldest city, the nation's oldest city, and a city so old that there's still a Starbucks downtown. There's a lot downtown in St. Augustine, and it's actually kind of interesting how they have plenty of history that supersedes the traditional Spanish occupation in the 15 and 1600s that obviously is their main tourism bread and butter, kind of centered on the absolutely magnificent Castillo de San Marco right on the water of the Matanzas Bay. And if you want to learn a little bit about the Castillo and a little bit about Matanzas and why Matanzas is the best historical name for a red ale, the people that you need to go to are Ancient City Brewing. And it's an interesting story. In fact, I do believe I wrote up Matanzas Red Ale on Florida Beer Blog. If you want to go in there and search, I've got a full reason as to why it is the way that it is. But Ancient City, arguably the biggest brewing entity in St. Augustine, one of the four big ones that share the city with a few other brewers such as Dog Rose, Old Coast, and Bog. But Ancient City is interesting because they actually have two locations. There is the main production facility that's out on Interstate 95, away from the historic downtown area. But right in the middle of town is a tasting room that actually, the facility has a long history itself. And that's where I'm going to be meeting both founder Greg Tuttle and Vice President Britta Messler. It's going to be mostly Greg at the beginning of the interview, then Britta came in a little bit later, and I will say that this is not the first time I've actually had this interview, or the first time that I've tried this interview. This interview with just Greg and I, we tried to do many years ago, pre-COVID years ago, but back at that time, my equipment was not so good. If you remember those episodes of the podcast, I was using a tiny little shotgun microphone that plugged into my phone's headphone jack back when phones had headphone jacks, which is not a sentence I thought I was going to be saying today, but there you go. So luckily Greg is an amazing human being and brought Britta in, and we did it again and had a great interview. And it's funny because we actually came back here at the tail end of our tour with St. Augustine Experiences, which was the previous episode on the Florida Beer Podcast. So if you want to go back and listen to that and get a little bit of a historic rundown of beer in the nation's oldest city, that'd be a great place to go. But we're here with part one of our interview with Ancient City Brewing with Greg and Britta. Enjoy. That is a really good starting point, because when Ancient City opened, let's take a look at what the alcohol scene in St. Augustine looked like. It was San Sebastian Winery, yes, but they were really part of Lake Ridge, because I'm assuming Lake Ridge opened first.
Yeah, they're good people. The owner, I'm not sure which came first, to be honest with you, but they're a staple. They've been around for a long time. They sell thousands and thousands of cases. You know, they have some pretty good stuff. So
it's them, A1A.
Yes.
But A1A was really a brew pub.
Yes.
It still is. They've gotten rid of the brewing operations, obviously. And then Ancient City sort of rose from the ashes, from what I've heard through the grapevine, of Mile Marker.
Mile Marker, that is correct. So Mile Marker was in the same building that we are in now back then.
The production facility on 95.
Correct. Yep. So I'm not even sure when they started, but 2-3 years and just, I wasn't a part of it, so I can't tell you exactly what happened, but it didn't work, right? And I came in once they left and took the spot, basically leased the spot, because it was available, and rose from the ashes. It's a pretty good phrase, I guess.
Exactly.
A phoenix rising.
but in that time, Ancient City really kind of grabbed what a production facility could be here in St. Augustine and ran with it. So my first question is, for a city that is very clearly focused on its past and advertising its past and selling its past, as we're watching people,
Some lady fixing her hair in our window.
that's the best part. So we are sitting in the downtown tap room. We are literally by a window of a facility,
awesome.
and we'll talk about the facility a little bit later on, but a woman is fixing her hair in the window, not realizing that this is not a two-way mirror. that was
fabulous.
Does this happen all the time?
Constantly.
Constantly. Nice.
It's the best is that was pretty good, but they walk up and they don't want to walk in, and they put their face to the window and they're like trying to see through. It's hilarious.
That's amazing. So I guess back to what I was saying, what was it like working with St. Johns County? What was it like working with the municipality here in St. Augustine, saying like, hey, we're going to open this brewery, we're going to push, we're going to be even bigger than anything that you have seen here before?
So about 8 questions in there. I'm going to do my best.
Go for it.
The county was fabulous when we opened. There were some permits that we needed to get, and we flew through, is the best way to say it. We were welcomed open arms. I think Mile Marker wet the whistle for the town a little bit on the craft beer scene. A1A was a Gordon Biersch company, right? So that's a little bit different than what we do and what all the other craft breweries do. So I think when Mile Marker folded and we stepped in, I remember an article by the Jacksonville Business Journal, and it was titled "Ancient City Filling the Craft Beer Gap." Right? So I think the town was happy, for lack of a more elaborate way of saying it, that someone was coming back into the space and filling the St. Augustine quote-unquote craft beer scene. And, I think that goes to a little bit about what we were talking, pre-recording. This is a very prideful town. We love our city. And that's, why 7 million people visit here a year. One of the reasons why we love it, and everybody comes here because it's just awesome. It's a cool place. It's got a vibe that nowhere else does. Charleston's close, Savannah's close, New Orleans is close, but St. Augustine is very unique. But to get back to your question, I think that we filled a gap at the time, and we opened the brewery, and doors opened on May 15th of 2015. The downtown tap room opened in 2017, and it's 2 different municipalities. The county was great. Where we are at the brewery, and we're obviously in St. Johns County, but the city of St. Augustine governs where we are here.
So the downtown tap room is the city of St. Augustine. I thought that
Correct.
Your production facility was as well.
No, that's just the county. There's no incorporated city out there. I don't know exactly where the line is, but we're on the other side of it. So, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, because by the time you opened, the 2 big players in the area were Bold City and Intuition, but those are both Duval.
Yes.
So
correct. They're both down here. So they're Bold City is in the AB network, and they've been here when we were here. They were already here. Intuition's been here about this. I think they're only like a year or 2 apart in age. So they were already here, and that was pretty much it. There was other ones that were coming up, veterans. Up in Jacksonville, and then we've had a few pop up down here. Great people. Bog, which is fabulous. The mad scientist of St. Augustine, Steve. Yeah, the Old Coast guys are great. Dog Rose, Doug, and his wife Courtney, fabulous people. So, at that time, very thin. Now, a little bit more.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. And, obviously I was talking about it with Alex from St. Augustine Experiences, that you have 4, I guess 5 if you count what Jack's Barbecue is doing.
Correct. Yep.
But they are different enough, and they have their own little niche.
Very unique.
Exactly. So I guess I will start with that question is, when you had the idea for Ancient City, I would say formulation, but I don't want to be that guy. What is it that you were looking for? Because we're taking a look at the tap room, and you've got some of the basics, some of the standards that, A1A Aleworks would have made, but you're also going a little bit crazy into the traditional Florida desserty sort of feel. As I look at Alex, and he's got his Mocha Mallow Stout that he is enjoying, and my wife is enjoying Conquistador. He's loving that stout, by the way. I guess, when did you decide, this is who we are, this is the group that we're going to attract, these are the beers that we're going to make?
So early on, the Ancient City is all things the Ancient City, right? St. Augustine. It's our core brands were built, created around the city. Matanzas River Red, which is the river right there. Anastasia Island IPA is across the river. Castillo is the fort over here. So, Augustine's Orange Amber, Ponce's Pale Ale. So we literally sat down and said, we're going to create this brand around our city. And that's what we did. And those 6 cores, they're year round. They're always going. They're everywhere. But then the 2 sides of it are, one, that production side, and then is the other side, which is honestly a little bit more of the fun side, where we create the Conquistadors and the Mocha Mellows and the El Santos. And, honestly, we fly by the seat of our pants with it, man. I'm not gonna, no BS. It's, hey guys, what do you want to do today? How do you feel? What are you seeing? What would you like to drink? Like, Britta's killing me for a seltzer for a year. But no, literally, we stay in our production lane. We do what we need to do on that side. And then the second side of it is the creation and the artist side, the craft, the unique flavors and whatnot. And it's literally flying by the seat of our pants. It's how we feel that day.
Hey, what has kind of become your signature ale? And the reason that I'm about to say the one that I think it is I'm still amazed that Bold City, with as big as they are, has been producing a brown ale as 50% of their production for as long as they have. And it seems like, if I take a look at everything that Ancient City has going on in terms of production and distribution, it almost feels like Matanzas Red is your biggest seller.
It goes back and forth. Our top 3 kind of flip here and there, right? So the Anastasia IPA is always going to be big, especially in our package. The cans, it sells like crazy. Then you have the red that'll bump up above Anastasia at some point in time. Then it'll drop back down. Then the orange amber is catching fire over the last, 12 to 18 months. So those 3 kind of jockey for 1, 2, 3, go back and forth. It depends on the time of the year. We have more IPA and more orange sales in the summer, right? But then you get into the fall, or, even the winter, the red. And the red's always been good. It was one of our first real, how do I say it? Just, shots, right? It flew out of the gate, right? So yeah, it's a great beer. And, in Bold City with their Dukes, they do very well with it. It's a great brown ale. So out of our 6, it's basically 2 tiers: IPA, red and orange, and then the pale, gold, and coconut. And it just depends on the time of year and the people that are in town. Thank you, Britta. They move around, to answer your question a little bit.
Gotcha. Obviously, Ancient City is sort of an easy moniker to make. Was it meant to be sort of an easy get when it comes to advertising, or was there something that spoke to you about, hey, I really do want to celebrate who we have here, and I want to kind of find the right beers to tell the right stories?
The latter. It wasn't, I need to find, I have to be a marketing genius type thing. It just fit. It's, the Ancient City. We sat down and the plan was, we're going to create this brand around our city again. So, it just, Ancient City. It's one of those things. It just is what it is. And it was there to grab, and we grabbed it, and it's worked out very well. The 2-word phrases are always good. It just happened to be Yeah, the nickname.
Kind of perfect, yeah.
Yeah, the nickname of our town. So
Now, you did mention that obviously we are sitting in the downtown tap room, and to be perfectly honest, I am very happy with as gracious as you've been, because we've tried this interview before I had good equipment, and it was a great interview, but the audio was unlistenable, so I could not release it. So thank you so much for being here.
of course, thank you for coming. You're always welcome.
I'm definitely happy about that. But I guess, when did you decide, hey, we need a separate tap room?
Oh, I haven't told you this story?
You may have. Please tell me again.
Oh, it's hilarious. So I'm walking down the street here on, I was going to say King, but King's the one over there, which everybody knows King. This is Cathedral. So I'm walking down the street. I don't even know where I was, right? And I happened to just look through the window like all these people we see going by now, and the space was empty. It was literally nothing in here.
I find that hard to believe now, when there's so many stores and so many boutiques and so on and so forth.
Timing is everything, my man. And, I just happened to be there that day, happened to glance to my right and go, holy cow, is this really empty? Had no idea who owned the building. I went back, did a Google search, found the owner, sent them a letter and said, hey, I'm, Greg Tuttle in Ancient City, blah, blah, blah. What's going on? 3 days later, I get a phone call. He calls me and explains it, and I said, I'll take it. He goes, it's yours. It literally went that fast.
That's amazing. Yeah. Especially in a place like, I guess, could that story have happened now?
No, not now. Different time. Yeah. Different time, different set of circumstances. There were some family things going on, and God bless all of them for what they went through. They're good now. And, we have a great relationship with our landlords. So
awesome. And what did this building used to be? I think wasn't it a movie theater?
It was
part of a movie theater.
It was. Remind me of the name, Britta. Matanzas. Oh, there you go. Matanzas.
Okay, there we go. Matanzas.
So this building, actually, you can tell we have like 25-foot ceilings here, 20-foot ceilings. I mean, they're insane.
It's interesting because you've got the black paint, you've got a really cool wave, and then there's like 2 feet and then a line. You can tell there's a line.
So that line is actually a curtain wall that was built between this building, our space, and the space next to us. And I actually believe the space to our left as well, because the three spaces together were the old movie theater. And if you see above our cold box where it's got those soundboards up top, if you can actually go in our back room and up into the attic, and that's actually where our air handler is. So to get to our air conditioning system, you have to go up above it where the old movie theater projection system was.
That's kind of cool.
So it's actually really cool, but it's a pain in the butt.
That's amazing. And so I guess you've seen a lot of changes that have sort of happened over the years. In terms of in terms of this space, is this the kind of business that could have opened and survived in the 90s and even the 2000s in St. Augustine?
Honestly, I'm not sure, honestly, because that time then really wasn't as, I think, beer knowledgeable, if that makes sense. I don't think that the beer knowledge was the same then, and I don't think that we had the tradesmanship ready for that. We had the tradesmanship here, but they couldn't really afford to take that leap. So I think that it really came down to us being a very traditional workman town. We come from a lot of hard workers, settlers, tradesmen, all of that came from the Menorcans here that built this town. So again, I just think that back in the 90s, 2000s, maybe they weren't ready for that jump. And we as a town weren't ready for that kind of niche to be brought here. But over the past 20, 30 years, we've really become that. We're a national, place to be, especially during this time of year, Nights of Lights. I mean, this is top 10 Forbes things you have to do before you die, basically.
Which we have done many times, and we will continue to come back because we love it so much. But that actually brings a really good point, because you've got the working class local background, but you also have a transient tourist background. When it comes to the beers that you're creating and the beers that you're serving here in the tap room downtown, which one sort of wins?
They both win, because again, we go back to our core six. They are what we've built our brand around, which then in turn leads to the ancient city. So tourists that come here, they really want to taste they want to taste of St. Augustine. And what better way for us to give them that than a beer made in the oldest city, branded around the theme of the oldest city, and very traditional theme, which is what we kind of stick to, is a traditional, clean product that anybody can drink. The tourist, the working man, the person who's got $5 in their pocket that just wants to come have a beer. We're really relate to all three of those categories, given where we are by trying to be that working class man's spot, but also appealing to the tourist in the brand that we are making, which is the Ancient City.
Now, when it comes to, I guess, the agriculture and the flavors that are here in St. Augustine, there's two different flavors that I'm very, very focused on. And I've, interestingly enough, not here, but other breweries, I've had kind of grabbed both of those, which would be the datil pepper and the muscadine grape.
So datil pepper is something that we actually need to do again. Since COVID, we haven't really been as heavy into this datil pepper as we have in the past since COVID. At our brew house location at Agricultural Center Drive, into that agricultural scene, they have the datil pepper festival every year, but that hasn't actually happened the past couple of years.
Oh my God.
And so every year when they come down Ag Center Drive to go to the agricultural center, we are on their left. You cannot miss us. So we've always made a datil pepper beer for the festival in the past. So we've done a Menorcan red. So with a Menorcan datil pepper, and we've made our Matanzas red, essentially a Menorcan red. That's a spicy red.
Oh my God.
And then we also took our Augustine's Orange Amber and we infused it with datil peppers. And that was honestly probably one of my favorite beers we've ever done.
Come on.
So again, I mean, we really do need to get back into that, Greg. Like kick, but we really do need to.
And then
You're right, Britta.
but then of course you talk about the muscadine grape, which is a very different flavor profile.
Very much.
Have you used that as well?
We have not. So it over the last there's really two periods of Ancient City's life cycle. There's pre and post COVID, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So when COVID hit, I don't know why I did what I did, but we filled the tanks and shut down. If you remember, I turned everybody loose. I didn't want anybody to get sick. But before we did that, we had the brewers fill everything up, and I get a call from Distro, in May or June. You got any beer? Nobody's got any beer.
Okay, interesting.
I do, matter of fact. And from that point on, it's just been hair on fire sales, right? So we, keeping up with that for a long time, we got so bogged down in our obligations to places like Publix or Total Wine or what have you, any retail account really. Our local people here, Harry's and Sunset Grill, the people that have always supported us. So that took away from our one-off, creation for a minute, and the datil pepper beers that Britta was just talking about were pre-COVID, right? And post-COVID, it's just a different world. So it took us a minute to get back on track as far as production goes post-COVID. But now that we're at a point where we're now filtering these things in, like these beers that you're seeing, the Conquistador, the Mocha Malo, and so on and so forth. And my plan's to never not have, that creation happening constantly. So we have 14 30-barrel tanks in the brew house and 2 14s. So those 14s are dedicated to one-offs and just keeping that supply turning and turning and turning. So
how much can you push? How much is it before your St. Augustine blue collar says, okay, this is no bueno?
You mean as far as
what are they willing to experiment with palate-wise?
So I think that is, Britta's going to pop in too after this because I can tell by her face she has something to say. And by the way, Britta Messler, a.k.a. The Hammer.
Okay. Oh, this interview has gone way off the rails. Hi, everybody.
I think we can push it pretty far, actually. I think there's a good amount of enthusiasts in town that live here, and you got to keep in mind, you live in Florida. You know the amount of people that move here on a daily basis. So I think that runway is pretty long. I really do. And I'm going to let Britta pop in.
I honestly think with the variety of people that we get through this town, and I say in and through and around, that the palette is honestly ever changing. I mean, I think that things we've made in the past that people have loved, they're like, we've seen it now. So again, you really do have to stay on that edge of innovation and creativity, because people come in here and they're like, you have a pumpkin beer? And I'm just like, pumpkin's a vegetable and a fruit all at the same time. So like, why would you not want to put it in your beer? You know, but again, it's like, how creative can you get? You know, I've had a ghost pepper beer that I thought was kind of crazy too. But again, you know, I would never really put ghost pepper in a beer, but it was mild enough to where it was drinkable. But like, how creative can we get is really the question. Like, what can you think of, and how can you infuse it in a way that the profile actually comes through the way that you're expecting it?
And that makes perfect sense. There's also a question of seasonality, not because of the weather, but because of the clientele, because it seems to me that here in the winter, this is your busier season and things drop off a little bit more over the summer. So and I've had other breweries that have told me that it's difficult to brew during the busier season because the people that are coming in are coming from other places that have much bigger craft beer scenes, and they're coming up to them and saying, hey, here's this beer that I tried.
Why
do
don't
something
you?
Like this? Or daring almost do this.
That's exactly right. That happens a lot, actually, because, you know, again, 7 million people, I think is the average number, something like that. Call it 6. I mean, that's a lot of people that visit, you know, here annually, and they're from everywhere. You know, the North, the West, you know, Europe. We had the Queen of Spain here recently, which was kind of cool.
I'm sorry, what?
The Queen of Spain. Oh yeah, we have a city in Spain that is our sister city. Yeah.
Okay.
Avilés. So yeah, it's pretty cool. This town's hopping, man.
Kind of awesome that the Queen of Spain would come to a brewery.
Well, she came to St. Augustine.
Okay, well, there we go.
So, to the point that the question that you're posing, it's we do what we can. We do what we like, right? You know, our guys at the brewery, we have very interesting, very in your face, out there kind of guys, right? And we'll do anything, honestly. But the seasonality of it, you got to have a pumpkin in late summer, in the fall. We did the hot fuzz, which is our peach, later in the year. That needs to be in the spring. We'll probably run it in the spring this year. So there's a little bit of both, right? There's the seasonality that you have to kind of bend to, for lack of a better way of saying it. But at the same time, you know, I'll do a stout in June. It doesn't matter to me. You know, it's all, there's so many people running through here that like so many different things that will sell.
So that's it for part 1. Come back next week. We will have part 2 of our interview with Greg Tuttle, founder and El Presidente, and Britta Messler, vice president and general manager of Ancient City Brewing in St. Augustine. In the meantime, thank you so much for listening. If you want to find us, the best place to go is on social media. We are at Florida Beer Blog on Instagram, Threads, X, and Blue Sky. The only place where we're not that is on Facebook, and on Facebook we are FL Beer Blog. Still not totally sure as to why. We are on the internet at floridabeerblog.com and floridabeerpodcast.com. And when you go on to floridabeerpodcast.com, you'll see that we are a very proud member of the Florida Podcast Network, an amazing group of Florida-based podcasts for your Sunshine State discerning ears. If you want to reach out to us, you can do so at floridabeerblog@gmail.com. Also recommend that you like us and subscribe on your favorite podcasting app of choice. And we are on Apple Podcasts. We're on iHeartRadio. We are on YouTube. You can even ask your smart speaker, hey, Alexa, play the latest episode of the podcast, Florida Beer Podcast, and it'll do that for you. If you can, on your podcasting app, please do us a favor, like, subscribe, give us a nice 5-star rating. We really do appreciate it, and it helps get the word out about Florida breweries and Florida beer. Our intro announcer is Jeff Brozovich, field producer of Steve Pekala, executive producer for the Florida Podcast Network in Grand High Poobah is Jemmy Legagneur. This is David Butler, your host and author. Thank you so much. And we will see you back here next week with part 2 of Ancient City Brewing. Enjoy and drink Florida craft.